Hi guys, welcome to this video looking at urban issues and challenges. I'm going to be talking through basically the whole topic, going through the exact knowledge and PLC you need for your GCSE exam. What I suggest you have for this video is a piece of paper and a pen so you can make notes as we go, you can record down the knowledge and then you can copy out the change of reason that I'm going to go through as well. Alternatively, if you want to use flashcards, that is also a perfect way to start your revision journey. So here is just part of the spec, just to remind you that we're going to be focusing on an urban area in an LIC NEE, which is Lagos, and we're going to be looking at a UK city which we study, and that is Portsmouth. So again, just to get a closer look, Lagos and Portsmouth are examples. So the first thing we're going to talk about with urban issues and challenges is the global pattern of urban change. So there's a key word here which is urbanisation, and what urbanisation means is the increase in percentage of people living in towns and cities. Okay, today around the world all countries are becoming more urban, and this is happening faster in some countries than others. Okay. So if we look at this line graph here, what we can see is urbanisation is very high in high income countries. However, the rate of urbanisation is slowing. This is because HICs urbanised during the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, and many people already live in cities. So the rate they're growing at now is slowed. However, what we can see is in the NEEs and the LICs, urbanisation is happening very, very fast. It's happening the fastest in NEEs, so newly emerging economies. And the reason for this is in NEEs there is natural increase taking place, as well as a lot of rural to urban migration. More on that in a moment. So, another key word, what is a megacity? A megacity is a city with a population of 10 million or more people. Currently there's 30 cities in the world that are megacities, and like I said in the previous slide, the fastest growing collection of these are in newly emerging economies and LICs. So now let's talk about this and let's think, why are cities growing rapidly? So the first reason is natural increase. So this is where the population grows because the birth rate is higher than the death rate. If we think about Lagos, for example, the population of Lagos is rapidly growing. It's now around 21 million people. The death rate has dropped. For example, there are 256 health centres in Lagos, which means people can get treated when they're sick, so therefore the life expectancies increase, less people will die. On the flip side, the birth rate in Lagos is still really high. That's because the population is young. In addition, we've also got a lack of contraception, meaning that when young couples do get together, the chance of pregnancy is quite high. Okay. The second cause of urban areas growing rapidly is rural to urban migration. This links back to push and pull factors. So push factors, bad things about the countryside. For example, in northern Nigeria, average wages are around $1,000 per year. It's low-paying jobs in farming and agriculture. Pull factors are good things about the city, opportunities that pull people in. For example, in Lagos there's 20,000 schools. The average wage, the GNI per capita, is $5,500 per year, so significantly more money for people. So we come on to Lagos, our example of a newly emerging economy, urban area. So the first thing you need to know is, where is Lagos? Lagos is located in the southwest of Nigeria. It's got a coastline with the Atlantic Ocean. You need to know why Lagos is important on three scales. Regionally, this means, why is it important for southwest Nigeria? Lagos is a major centre for trade. It's got daily markets for the local farmers to come in and sell produce. Lagos is important nationally. This is because Lagos is home to 80% of Nigeria's industry, so factories. This means more products are created, which means there are more exports. And internationally, Lagos is important because many TNCs like Microsoft, IBM have offices in the city. This means there's more tertiary and even quaternary jobs being created for people, therefore increasing people's disposable income. And then we get onto the opportunities. We need to know how urban change, so Lagos growing, now being home to 21 million people, has created opportunities. And I'm just going to talk through each one as I go through the slides. This is a great opportunity for you to jot down the specific PLC and exactly what it means. So, a social opportunity for people. Lagos has 256 public health centres. This means people can access medical care when they are sick, which means the life expectancy has increased and it is now 54. Therefore, there are more economically active people in Lagos, boosting the economy. Another social opportunity is Lagos has numerous water treatment plants. This means people living in the city have access to clean water, which means less people will be getting waterborne diseases like cholera. So therefore the life expectancy again is going to go up. Another social opportunity, Lagos has 20,000 schools. This means young people will get qualifications, therefore people have the skills in order to get formal jobs, and that will then lead to the government getting more taxes to improve the schools and hospitals within the city. Another social opportunity is Lagos uses 40% of Nigeria's energy, so electricity. And what this means is people have a reliable source of power within their homes, for example for fridges, which means they can store food at the correct temperature, reducing the risk of any disease. Lagos also is home to many economic opportunities, and that could be a potential 9-mark, 6-mark question, whether there's more social or economic. So, economic opportunities. Lagos is home to 80% of Nigeria's industries, such as you can see in the picture here as factories. This means more products are manufactured, which means Nigeria has more products to export. Another economic opportunity, the film industry, Nollywood, generates $3 billion a year from exporting films. This means taxes are going to be paid to the government, which means the government can then improve infrastructure in Lagos, for example, schools, roads, hospitals, water supplies. Another economic opportunity is Eco-Atlantic. It's an example of urban planning, and Eco-Atlantic is a project where they are reclaiming land from the sea to develop a new centre of business and finance. This industrial project creates 150,000 formal jobs in the city. This means there's more economically active who are contributing taxes to the government, which means the government can use more tax money to improve other infrastructure within the city. So Lagos seems like a very, very good place for social and economic opportunities. However, the city, with 21 million people, which is growing rapidly, also has lots of challenges. These are environmental challenges, social challenges, as well as economic. So let's talk through them. An environmental challenge, okay? Each day, Lagos generates 9,000 tonnes of rubbish, but only 40% of the waste is collected. This is partly due to the government not having enough tax money, as a lot of the population work in informal jobs. But the chain of reason to explain why this is bad is if 60% of the rubbish is not collected, this means rodents such as rats will be attracted to the areas, which means they can spread diseases amongst the population. Therefore, this can cause people to be sick and eventually die. Another social challenge in Lagos is 66% of the people cannot afford housing and they live in squatter settlements such as slums. An example of this is the Makoko slum, where 100,000 people live, as you can see, in very poor quality housing on a lagoon in Lagos. What this means is people might not have access to clean water, which means cholera will spread, leading to a lower life expectancy. In the slum of Makoko, another social challenge is there's only one school for 100,000 people. This means many children do not have access to education, which means in the future they cannot get formal jobs, so they get stuck in informal jobs which are low pay, no sick pay and very dangerous. Therefore, these children are trapped in a cycle of poverty, never being able to move out of the slum. Another social challenge in Lagos. Only 40% of people have access to clean water. So that means 60% of people, 60% of 21 million, do not have reliable clean water. This means people are forced to drink dirty water, which means rates of cholera and waterborne diseases increase. An economic challenge. This is the Olusosun dump in Lagos, a large landfill site in the city, and there's not enough jobs in Lagos for the 21 million people, so 60% of people work in informal jobs. This is a real challenge for the city as a whole, because with people working in informal jobs, the government are not receiving high enough money in taxes, which means the government doesn't have enough money to improve infrastructure in the city, such as improving roads, improving buses, improving water supply. So this is a real challenge which does limit the growth of the city. Another economic and environmental challenge. In Lagos, where there's 21 million people, traffic jams, daily occurrence. These are called go-slows, and these traffic jams can last for up to 2 hours a day. What this means is people might be late for work, which means they won't get paid. Alternatively, this means the old petrol cars that you can see in the picture, they release high amounts of CO2, which causes significant air pollution in Lagos, which means it increases the risk of people suffering from lung disease, from asthma, and therefore eventually dying quite young. So what we've just seen there is Lagos has lots of opportunities and lots of challenges. Okay, and we need to understand now what is being done to address this, and we looked at an urban planning scheme. The urban planning scheme we looked at was the Makoko Floating School. So a new school was designed and it was built in Makoko in 2013 by a Dutch charity. This school had many successes, one of them meaning it could give 100 students access to education. This means they got the qualifications, which means they could get formal jobs in the future, therefore moving out of Makoko and having a better quality of life. The school also provided jobs for unskilled workers. This means these workers gained a skill. They gained experience in building, which meant they could then go on later to get formal jobs which were higher pay, so therefore having more disposable income. And the school ran on solar power. This is a massive environmental opportunity. By running on solar power, it means less fossil fuels were being burnt in Makoko, reducing the CO2 emissions and therefore improving the air quality for local people. Unfortunately, the urban planning scheme was not 100% successful, as in 2016 it was destroyed in a storm, and the school has never been rebuilt. What this means is Makoko's only got one working school, so hundreds of thousands of young people are now trapped in the poverty cycle, unable to get out with an education to get the formal jobs. We also looked at industrial development in Lagos, and this photo here shows the Eco-Atlantic project. It shows you the current state of it, where they've reclaimed the land from the sea, and the bottom picture shows the end goal, what it's going to look like, the financial centre. So Eco-Atlantic is a massive industrial project which is stimulating economic growth in the city. It creates 150,000 jobs. This means more people are working formal jobs paying tax, which means the government can then improve education, and that'll have a positive effect because people get more qualifications and then can get more formal jobs. So it's a positive cycle of development for the city. In addition, it also helps prevent coastal erosion in Lagos, reducing any economic damage or social damage from flooding, and it also provides 250,000 homes for people, again reducing the need of people to live in squatter settlements. And the last bit about Lagos is what's being done to reduce the traffic, the 2-hour daily go-slows, what's being done to improve air quality. The government, like I said earlier, are limited with their financial expenditure due to 60% of people working in formal jobs. However, they are implementing a bus rapid transport system. This bus rapid transport system takes people from the suburbs into the CBD for work. It is large enough to provide 200,000 commuters with bus access directly into the CBD, so this would hopefully reduce the amount of traffic on the roads, which means CO2 emissions will decrease. A slight negative of this is it's only small scale. Like 200,000 people seems a lot, but in a city of 21 million, not all the population, and quite substantially 20.8 million people will not have access to this. So it's a good start, but it's not going to be the golden ticket to solving and improving air quality and reducing traffic congestion in Lagos. So that is Lagos. The second part of urban issues is looking at a city in the UK, and we choose the city where we all live. We've chosen Portsmouth. Before I talk about Portsmouth, we just need to have a general overview of the UK and where people live in it. So the UK's population is distributed unevenly, as you can see in the choropleth map on the right. Around 82% of people in the UK do live in urban areas. These are often classed as densely populated areas with a high number of people living per kilometre square, whereas the rural areas are sparsely populated with a low number of people living per kilometre square. So, Portsmouth. First things first, where is it? Portsmouth is located in the south of England. It's located southwest of London and has a coastline with the English Channel. You might be asked to explain the advantages of Portsmouth's location. It's a coastal city. This means it's easy to export products, which means there's going to be more trade and therefore boost the GDP of England. In addition, it's located an hour and a half away from London. This means people can commute into London to access tertiary and quaternary jobs, which means people will have more disposable income. We also need to know why Portsmouth is an important city, both towards the UK and internationally for the world. Portsmouth is a crucial city for the United Kingdom as it is home to the Royal Navy. This means it plays a central role in the defence of the UK, which creates thousands of jobs in the Navy for local people. Portsmouth is also an important international city for trade, with the international port importing 70% of all bananas eaten in the UK, which come from Ecuador. This means the city is playing a central role in global trade, which is then going to boost the GDP. Okay, but Portsmouth as a city is going through a lot of transition and change. Okay, the change in Portsmouth is being caused by migration. We have international migration, which is when people from overseas move to Portsmouth, and national migration, which is when people from the United Kingdom move to Portsmouth, the city. Before we look at how Portsmouth has changed, you need to understand what Portsmouth is like. That refers to character. The character of Portsmouth. Portsmouth has been seen throughout history as a working class naval city with a history of shipbuilding. For centuries, the dockyard has been one of the largest employers of the city. Okay, but the character of Portsmouth being a working class city is changing. National migration, so people moving from the UK, sees 25,000 students move to Portsmouth every year. This has changed Portsmouth's character because it has created a strong student scene, which means there are now more student bars in Southsea, especially along Albert Road. International migration is when people have moved to Portsmouth from another country. For example, 87.8% of Portsmouth's population were born in the UK, which means 12.2% of the population are born abroad. This means Portsmouth has become more multicultural. As you can see in the picture, we've got examples of Indian, Chinese and Polish shops in North End. By being multicultural, this means people in Portsmouth can experience foods from different cultures and get a greater understanding of the world, which means their quality of life will significantly increase. We also need to know about opportunities in Portsmouth. We've got social, economic and environmental. A social opportunity for Portsmouth is London Road in North End. It's got a thriving immigrant community. Has brought a range of food and festivals and cultural experiences from around the world. This means people in Portsmouth can experience and understand different cultures, which means they've got a better sense of the world and therefore a better quality of life. Another social opportunity in Portsmouth is HMS Vernon, a derelict brownfield site, was regenerated into Gunwharf Quays, which was home to a retail outlet with 90 shops. This means people in Portsmouth have somewhere where they can go on the weekends, they can be economically active and spend money in the shops, boosting the local economy. This means the government will receive more taxes from this. An economic opportunity for Portsmouth. Portsmouth International Port. It sees 70% of all bananas imported from Ecuador. This creates thousands of jobs for local people. which means they'll have more disposable income. In addition, a social opportunity. Victorious, the annual music festival in Southsea Common. This attracts 150,000 tourists each year. This means tourists are coming into Portsmouth and spending money in local bars, restaurants, hotels, which means the bars, hotels, restaurants make more profit and can therefore hire more staff to work in them. An economic opportunity. Tourism within Portsmouth, people visiting the dockyard, creates 12,000 jobs within the tertiary sector. This means unemployment in the city decreases, which means the crime rate in the city then goes down. Another economic opportunity. In 2015, 9.4 million tourists visited Portsmouth. They spent around £600 million. This means that the council received millions in taxes, which means Portsmouth City Council can improve local schools, and therefore GCSE results in the city will start to improve, offering young people access to higher paying jobs in the tertiary and quaternary sector. And finally, in Portsmouth, we've got environmental opportunities. One example of this is urban greening, so trying to improve the green spaces within the city. Portsmouth City Council plan to plant 74 trees and 400 metres of flower borders along Southampton Road in Poolsgrove. What this means is hopefully more CO2 will be absorbed by the trees, which means Portsmouth's going to have a cleaner air quality. Alternatively, urban greening is a great way to explain that this means the area looks nicer, which means people are going to be actively encouraged to get outside and exercise, which means they're healthier, so their life expectancy increases. And then the final opportunity in Portsmouth is how we're dealing with traffic. Okay, the hard interchange costs £7 million and it's a transport hub. What that means is this transport hub is home to buses, to trains, to ferries, to coaches, and this transport hub makes public transport easier in Portsmouth. This means less cars are going to be on the road within the city, which means the air quality is cleaner as there's less CO2, therefore reducing the risk of lung disease, which reduces any pressure on local hospitals like Queen Alexandra. So that's all the opportunities in Portsmouth. We're now just going to talk through the challenges of urban change. So, as Portsmouth has seen deindustrialisation in the dockyard with 20,000 people losing their jobs, it's created a lot of inequality, especially within the Charles Dickens ward, which is in central Portsmouth. One large problem in Charles Dickens ward is unhealthy lifestyles. This is because there's high deprivation, so people on lower incomes. And what this means is people might eat processed food because it's cheaper. Also, with higher deprivation, people on lower incomes, there's a higher risk of alcohol abuse or smoking. These are unhealthy habits. And what this means is there are more health problems associated with these unhealthy habits, which therefore leads to a lower life expectancy. And this has led to the life expectancy in the Charles Dickens ward being 8 years lower than that in Drayton and Farmington. Education is another challenge in Portsmouth. In the Charles Dickens ward, 32% of people leave school with no qualifications. This means unemployment in the area is high, which in turn leads to the area having a higher crime rate, and to be precise, an average of 677 crimes per month. Urban dereliction is another challenge Portsmouth faces. This is where people move out of the CBD, the centre, Charles Dickens ward, to the suburbs. As people move out, local businesses start to close down and become derelict and abandoned. This means it increases crime as you see graffiti, which creates visual pollution for the area. Another challenge is building on brownfield sites. This is HMS Vernon. To decontaminate and clear the brownfield site is very expensive. This means the council are going to have to spend millions of pounds in making the site suitable for building on, which means they've got less money for funding schools. Another challenge is building on greenfield sites, for example Harbour Place in Drayton and Farlington. By building on greenfield sites, it reduces the habitat for wildlife such as local foxes, local rabbits, and this means the biodiversity will decrease. Like I've already said, Deindustrialisation. After World War II, 30,000 people worked in the dockyard. 20,000 people have lost their jobs there as the factories relocate to Southeast Asia. This has led to Portsmouth having higher unemployment again, which means there is high crime rate. But the challenges do not have to stay forever. The council know they need to improve Portsmouth as an area, and they are trying to regenerate it. Urban regeneration is where you take a brownfield derelict site, which was once used, and improve it to something which has got a social and economic benefit. The picture in the bottom left shows HMS Vernon, an abandoned naval site, which was regenerated into Gunwharf Quays, a shopping centre with over 90 shops and 30 restaurants. What we need to know is, was this regeneration project worth it? This regeneration project has created many benefits for Portsmouth. One benefit is this regeneration project, Gunwharf Quays, attracts 6 million tourists to the city each year. This means tourists will come and spend money in local shops, which means the council will get higher taxes. The project has created over 2,500 jobs. This means unemployment in Portsmouth decreases, which means the crime rate will then go down as well. In addition, the shops, the restaurants pay council taxes each year. They pay £1.9 million a year to the council. This means the council can afford to improve local schools in Portsmouth, which means the GCSE outcomes in the city will go up. Therefore, young people have access to tertiary jobs, called quaternary jobs in the future. However, Gunwharf Quays has created challenges. This picture shows Commercial Road. Due to the success of Gunwharf, people no longer visit Commercial Road, and that has seen shops lose profit. For example, this is a picture of Marks and Spencer's, which is shut down. What this means is people that worked in Commercial Road lose their jobs, so unemployment increases. So has it solved unemployment in Portsmouth, Gunwharf? No, it's just moved the problem from one area, HMS Vernon and Charles Dickens Ward, further up towards Commercial Road. In addition, house prices in Gunwharf are very expensive. Okay, £679,000 for a flat. Average rent prices in Gunwharf and around Gunwharf is £900 a month for a flat. This means people that lived in the area for years are being forced out because they cannot afford to live in this area, which means the community spirit of Portsea is being broken up. Alternatively, well, in addition I should say, Portsmouth is a growing city, and as Portsmouth grows, it grows into the countryside. Urban sprawl is when a city goes outwards into the countryside, building on greenfield sites and woodlands. What we can see here at the bottom is we've got examples of this. We've got North Harbour Shopping Centre, the retail park, which has been built on greenfield site, and we've got Harbour Place housing estate in Drayton and Farlington. We need to know why this is a positive and sometimes a negative. So Harbour Place, Drayton and Farlington, it was built on a greenfield site and has created 337 new homes. A positive of this is 7% of the houses is affordable. This means first-time buyers, so young people, can afford to buy a house with a mortgage, which means young people are no longer paying rent, which means they've got more disposable income as their mortgage will have a lower payment than their rent did. The project also has 30 acres of green space involved, which does create some habitat for wildlife, and it also reduces pressure on homes in Portsmouth. So this means there's less overcrowding, which means the spread of disease in the city will decrease. However, there are a few negatives of this. With 337 new homes, it's increased traffic congestion in Drayton and Farlington, increasing CO2 emissions, ruining the air quality, increasing the risk of lung disease. It's also put pressure on local services. This shows a doctor's waiting room. Where there's a higher population, waiting times at GPs have increased, which means people may not get diagnosed, so therefore could suffer for longer without receiving medication. In addition, school places are now oversubscribed in the area and class sizes are increasing, reducing the quality of education children receive, which could have a negative impact on pupil progress and GCSE outcomes. Also, house prices in Drayton and Farlington have decreased value. That's because houses along Bedhampton Road have now lost their view. Their view now looks like this. What this means is the house price drops, which means people will lose tens of thousands of pounds in their savings. And the final part about urban issues and challenges is how can cities become more sustainable? To be a sustainable city, that means the city meets the needs of people today without compromising the needs of people in the future. Problems around cities and sustainability refer to resource management, so water and energy, pollution of both the air and water, waste management, and the removal of green spaces. So let's have a little think about how Portsmouth is being sustainable. Here's Gunwharf Quays. For example, Gunwharf Quays has got 900 solar panels. This is helping with energy conservation because this means less fossil fuels are being used in Portsmouth, which means generations in the future will have access to using fossil fuels and access to electricity from the solar panels. Water conservation in Portsmouth. The local water company, Portsmouth Water, offer reduced prices on water butts for people's gardens. This allows people to collect and store rainwater to then water their gardens and clean their cars with. This means less fresh water is being used, which means there is more fresh water available for future generations. Waste recycling in Portsmouth. Gunwharf Quays is committed to zero waste to landfill and recycles 75% of their waste. This means less green space is used for landfill, which means the biodiversity of the South Downs around Portsmouth will remain high as the habitats of rabbits, foxes and badgers will not be destroyed. In addition, sustainable living in Portsmouth looks at creating green spaces. We've mentioned it already, but 74 trees being planted along Southampton Road. This means that more CO2 is going to be absorbed, hopefully increasing air quality in Portsmouth and reducing lung diseases. And then we come on to traffic. Traffic's a big problem, especially when we think about cities in emerging countries like Lagos. Go slow 2 hours a day. But even in cities like Portsmouth, CO2 is incredibly high, increasing the risk of lung disease and asthma within the UK. Economic problems, people late to work, deliveries not made. Environmental problems, CO2 trapping solar radiation, leading to enhanced greenhouse effect. So in order to manage traffic in Portsmouth, £7 million was spent on the hard interchange. This is an integrated transport hub which makes public transport easier. This means there are less cars on the roads in Portsmouth, therefore improving air quality as there's less CO2 in the atmosphere or the air people are breathing, so less people will be getting lung diseases and asthma. That is the whole topic of urban issues. On the next slide, I've just got some examples of exam questions. If you'd like to pause the video here, you could attempt some of these questions. I've written down the success criteria next to them. For example, if they need KU, KUU or AKU. I also have here some predicted exam questions. So these exam questions are part of the specification which have not been tested yet. So again, these are a good way for you to practice. Feel free to pause it on either this slide or the previous slide and complete them. I'll go back to the previous slide for you. I won't because it doesn't work. If you complete any of these exam questions, please feel free to email Mr. Randall, Miss Actor or Mr. Ross, or bring them in to us to Mark. Hope you've enjoyed this and found it useful. Have a great day.